Speaking of Secretary Mattis, to David Ignatius in just a moment, but Trump's quick Twitter reaction to the terror attacks was in contrast to the response from his Secretary of Defense, James Mattis.
I don't know enough about it yet, the details, so let me get up to date and I'll talk to you on the plane.
But what are you going to do if the London police are saying this is a terrorist attack? We have 2 dead, dozens wounded. What does it say about terrorism?
I need to confirm everything. I like learning about something before I talk, so let me look into it.
Really? That's
David
good.
Ignatius.
Someone in the White House does.
David Ignatius, a radical thought, but that's actually how leaders usually act. And Secretary Mattis is the best of the best.
It's not funny, though.
That's classic Mattis. I mean, I've heard him say that more than once. Could we please get the facts before I spat out an opinion? Mattis is in a really difficult position. He is trying very hard to maintain his contact with the White House, not get out of step with this president. You never quite know where he's stepping. Be a responsible leader for the military, and he is walking that fine line every day. I think it's going to get more and more difficult, where he feels he has to speak out. I think he really doesn't want to. He'd really like to keep it zipped and be SecDef. He's used to being a general and generally keeping it zipped. But this trip illustrated how difficult that's getting.
Well, as for the attacks, police continue to carry out raids early this morning, and so far 12 people have been arrested in East London. Saturday's violence marked the 3rd terrorist incident on British soil in as many months. And speaking yesterday, Prime Minister Theresa May called on citizens to unite against attacks like these.
While we have made significant progress in recent years, there is, to be frank, far too much tolerance of extremism in our country. So we need to become far more robust in identifying it and stamping it out across the public sector and across society. That will require some difficult and often embarrassing conversations. But the whole of our country needs to come together to take on this extremism. And we need to live our lives not in a series of separated, segregated communities, but as one truly united kingdom. We cannot and must not pretend that things can continue as they are. Things need to change.
Zanny, Theresa May was seen as a tough home secretary, a position that she, better than anybody else, was able to hold on to because it was such a difficult position. But it's ironic that as she comes up to this Thursday election, it's a series of attacks now.
It is, but it's clearly she's going to play to her reputation as a tough Home Secretary. She came out yesterday and she made this very strong statement. She said, enough is enough. I have to say, I found enough is enough a slightly odd phrase to use. It seemed to suggest that a certain amount of terrorism was tolerable, but suddenly we've had enough is enough. She's now laying out a series of things. After the election, there'll be a kind of relook at the British counter-terrorism strategy. There'll probably be longer sentences. But I think for me, one of the big questions is how she wants to clamp down on the tech companies. And you heard that. She wants an international agreement. She says we need to have a conversation. These guys have to do more. And I think that is, for all of us, going to be one of the really big subjects.
It really is the new frontier because, you know, we have police in the streets. Should we be policing this entire world that is online?
That's right, Mika, but I think it rapidly comes up to something that's quite dangerous. I mean, what is it? What is their responsibility? What are we going to say they should be policing? The kind of infringement on free speech quite quickly becomes worrying.
And again, another interesting thing about her saying enough is the fact she has been one of the longest-serving Home Secretaries. So this has been...
And that's something that Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition, who, as you know, has been surging in the polls, was quick to jump on, because he was saying, you know, we've had a police force that's been starved of resources. So he was very quickly jumping onto the fact that she has been Home Secretary, and this has been her bailiwick.
The sheer math of this, though, is frightening. Here you've got this country. If you have 3,000 people who are considered by the Metropolitan Police and Scotland Yard to be hardened jihadists, another 20,000 people who are close to that circle, can you just think about the coverage, the monitoring of the movements of these individuals, the conversations, even in the most intrusive of societies, the scale of the police, and you could be successful 99.9% of the time, and you will still have the sort of thing you saw the last couple of days. The scale of this problem, the nature of this problem is truly worrisome.
The question is, though, Zanny, why Britain? Is it the election coming up?
Who knows? Is it returning IS fighters? Is it, you know, extremism? Who knows? I fear that this kind of low-tech attack is, I'm afraid, something that is just, I mean, I hate to say this, but is part of the new normal. At some point, you know, what are you going to do? How are you going to defend, as Richard says, the level of surveillance, the level of, you know, look what France is doing. France has got, you know, essentially has got a state of emergency pretty much after its attacks. Do we want to live in those kind of societies? At some point, that's exactly what these people
and
want to
again, you
achieve.
look at the attacks, and you look what the attacks were. You look at the attack at the Manchester concert. It wasn't inside, it was outside. It was the outer rings. It's, you know, the security force is holding up, but how many, do you go 10 blocks out? How far out do you go? It's the same thing with airports.
Let's go.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.